Hey Northway, welcome back to another installment of Behind and Beyond. We are so excited you're here with us again today. This week, we're sitting down with Dave, once again.
The other Dave.
The other Dave, not to be confused with
I know.
Dave B.
I know. I'm
This
an
is
imposter.
Dave B.
That's right.
Yes, your eyes have not tricked you.
Hey.
This is not the man who preached on Sunday. But I'm excited about this because we're going to do a little I feel like I get to get you're not always giving your honest thoughts, but
I try to. I try to be honest.
you do a great job.
Thanks. Thank you.
But I'd love to, we get to hear your thoughts. It's like we get to dissect this sermon together.
Right.
Because you're a little more removed from it.
Yeah, that's right.
So
From a different angle.
Yeah, different.
Yeah.
So what was your main takeaways from Remember the Sabbath week?
So first of all, Dave Buehring is like a special friend of Northway, and I love him. He's such a trusted voice. I always tell him that he's a father to our church, like a spiritual fatherly voice. And so not that I don't do this for other people. When Dave's here, I kind of hang on like his words and his conversations and the way he asks questions. I got to spend some time with Dave before and after services, and Dave is so good and grounded in the ways of God. I think he used that phrase. I heard it a couple of different times, and so my big takeaway was it was just another impression because we forget, like we're thick-headed human beings. We think we know better. We're no different than the Israelites. We get a little bit of God, we hear some things and things are good, and then we're like, okay, I got this. Let me go do things my way. But Dave always reminds us of the ways of God and how they are blessed and how following them allows us to flourish and it leads us to real freedom. And so just around that idea of rest and, right at the beginning, as he quoted a couple of just to kind of set up that tension of how busy and hurried and pressured we are. It was just this like gentle reminder again of keep choosing to follow God's ways versus the grind. That's what I often call it. So that was my big takeaway of it. And for me as a teacher or a preacher, those words can be interchangeable. So much comes back to the ways and character of God. The more we know him, the more we follow him, the more we get to experience his blessing. So do I get points for working in the mission statement?
Yeah, absolutely. We got that on camera. Yeah, that was great.
Thanks. Yeah.
What is it like for you? Can you turn that side off of your brain and enjoy a sermon, or what? I'm just curious.
I wish I could say yes. No, there's no way to always turn it off. Worship is important for me to lose myself in, worshiping the Lord. Lose myself sounds like an Eminem. So.
Yeah. It's okay.
Anyways, Eminem reference on Behind and Beyond. But really empty myself. And because so oftentimes, here's the real, when you're in church and you work at a church, sometimes you're always evaluating church.
So true.
You're always looking at, was that a distraction? And how about that transition? And why is the slide a little bit late? And who did those lights? And so for me, sitting closer to the front is always important. That way I don't see everything going on. Like if someone gets up and leaves and goes to the bathroom, I'm like, why are they leaving? What happened?
I'm like,
what's going
on?
on?
It'd be so hard.
Why can't folks hold it any longer than,
I'm not shaming that.
15 minutes. No, but it's normal, right? It's normal. This is normal. And I've had to get up and leave too, right? But that's the hyper evaluative eye. So it is hard when you're sitting in church, but I'll tell you the nice thing is I don't believe we have any teachers that are wild cards. So I'm never on the edge of my seat worried oh my gosh, what are they going to say? Are they going to blow things up? Are they going to speak against our theology? Dave's such a trusted voice. So it's not difficult. It's not super easy, and you have to remind yourself, you'll hear me say this phrase a lot, I go to church here too. I have to remind myself that. This is where our family goes to church. We worship here. I don't just work here. And so that's a battle if you work on staff. I try to talk to staff members about that sometimes, but I think I'm giving you a long-winded answer. I love Dave so much. I trust him. He has been there for me. He has spoken into my life. So with Dave, it's probably a little bit easier than if we have a different guest speaker coming in.
Yeah.
So I wish I could just say it's easy. It's not.
Well, we're here for the honesty.
That's right. That's right.
Great. Could you maybe give, for people who aren't familiar with Dave Buehring, a little synopsis of his relationship with Northway? People who just don't know.
So I've been at Northway for 8 years now, coming up on 8 years. And Dave has been connected to Northway since I think he said 2009, 2010. So he's like 13 plus years. Pastor Jay knew Dave and brought him in. And of course, all through Scott's tenure as the lead pastor, Dave was a supporting voice. Dave was Pastor Kent, who is the Steelers chaplain, very close with Dave. I think Kent still serves on Dave's board. So the relationship was strong through discipleship and mentoring. And then through the transition, when Scott and I began to change roles, actually, believe this or not, it was 4 years ago this month that we changed offices. Wow. Like neither of us knew it was happening. Our maintenance team came and like told Scott, you need to leave, we're painting. And Scott and I had a laugh about this, but it was funny. But it was 4 years ago. But Dave was a voice that was there on like quarterly calls with us. He would do visits and have dinner with me and Scott to see how that transition was going. So he's that's why I say a fatherly voice. He's a guide. And I look at Dave and I want this to be a testimony and story of my life. I look at Dave and there's just something that about me that looks at him and says, I want what he has. I want to be like him. I want to emanate the ways and character of God the way Dave does. And so when you see someone like that, you want to be around them. And so we have like an agreement with Dave to come and preach at our church 2 times a year. And he comes and speaks to our staff and he meets with some staff members. And I just want him to continue to pour his heart out into our church. So the relationship goes deep. I'm so thankful for the roots and story of Northway. Like, I came into something that God was already growing and blessing, and I'm in the role. God's asking me to serve in this role. None of our roles are permanent. I heard a leader say a long time ago, you wind me up and I'll just get going, right? Yeah. Leadership is temporary. It's a stewardship, and we'll all give an account for the leadership that we offered. That's not just for pastors. Yeah. That's for business leaders. That's for moms and dads. That's for grandmas and grandpas. That's for Dave Buehring coming in and speaking at Northway. Leadership is a stewardship, meaning it's not ours. We have to guide it and hold it with open hands. Brad Beggs, our campus pastor at Swickley, always talks about opening up our hands so we're not gripping something as if it's our own. It's temporary, meaning, man, I cannot let the title of lead pastor become the identity of Dave D'Angelo. I cannot. I like, it happens so often. We just think I am the lead pastor. No, I'm being asked to serve as the lead pastor. It feels like, is that semantics? Yes, but no, it's identity. Yeah. And so Dave helps guide that. Dave helps nurture that. And then here, let me tie this back in. Long-winded rabbit trail. Sabbath helps that. Yeah. It really does. Sabbath for me it was a game-changing discipline. And I would just say, act of worship. Discipline's probably the right word. Game-changing discipline that I learned and was challenged to very early on in ministry. So I loved what Dave was talking about, and it reinforces and reminds me God's ways are best ways.
Yeah, let's break that down really practically. Mm-hmm. Like, I love to get really granular with things like this. I'm such a give me a list.
You're a detail-oriented person.
I'm a detail person.
Yeah, yes, I did know that.
To my core.
Yeah.
So for you, I know you've spoken about, actually a few podcasts ago, you mentioned how important rest is and your Sabbath on Fridays. Yep. So for some people who are like, you don't Sabbath on a Sunday? We'll explain. Could you explain?
Sunday's a work day.
It's not, you have a little different variation.
Yeah.
So why don't you speak to what does your Sabbath look like? Mm-hmm. How have you gotten there? Mm-hmm. How did you develop that? Has it always been like that way for you? Or and then how have you seen God move when you have trusted him with your time? Yeah,
that's so good. So the grind of anything that we do, ministry is a grind. I often say it's like digging in sand. It's constantly being filled in, and you wonder, are we making progress? So there's a continual pressure to ministry. It's constant, right? It's people's lives, right? It's all of our lives, and it's learning to follow Jesus in the context and cultural moment we're all living through. So early on in ministry, my approach, and I had learned this early on in life, is you get your work by your work, right? So work hard, and you'll earn more. And if you do well, and if you pay attention, however, as true as that is, it's speaking about responsibility and commitment and even maybe a little bit of loyalty. It also speaks of a works mentality. So deep down behind the not following a Sabbath, there's a lie. I think there's a lie behind any time we follow something other than God's ways. There's a lie that's something like this. If I don't, well, it won't.
So true. Yeah.
So if I don't read this email, if I don't call this person, if I don't work on this sermon, if I don't get ahead for next week, then it won't be good. It won't go well. We won't flourish. Same thing is true in business. Same thing is true in parenting. Same thing is true in all of life. If I don't, it won't. But God lays this Sabbath thing in as a part of creation. And like, we think creation stopped at 6 days. He created a Sabbath for us too.
Yeah.
Like the seventh culminating, ending part of Sabbath. So for me early on, I had to learn because I was exhausted. It was such a grind. And I thought, well, I need to work harder because this is how you advance. Those are man's ways. Yeah. It's not God's ways. And the part that I thought Dave did such a good job of, I love, when you open the scriptures, there's always something new and fresh. The commandment says to like remember the Sabbath as unto the Lord. That's a difference. Yeah. So this is something that we are doing in honor of God, in an effort toward God, to posture our hearts to saying, God, your ways are better than my ways. And so early on, I had to like take this risk of saying, okay, Fridays, they're going to be off days. Because you know who is paying the price of my grind? Brooke, Nico, Gino. Mila wasn't quite yet born. Not quite yet. I don't know if that's possible. Mila was not born, right?
Yeah.
And so I was often on my Fridays, I was going in, I was working, and I was saying, yeah, we'll go to lunch. And it was after like 4 or 5 hours of me, and I wasn't present for my family. I wasn't there. I wasn't like attentive to conversation. And all of a sudden, there just felt like there was a gap and there was distance in my family between me and them. It wasn't a loss of love. It just was a lack of presence. Sabbath reminds us when we do it as unto the Lord of where we really should be present. And it relieves and alleviates the pressure, and it allows God to remind us of what it's all about and who ultimately is carrying things. Jesus says, come to me and I'll give you rest, meaning you don't got to carry all this. We were never designed to carry the things that we carry. Sabbath reminds me and it reorients me, and I need it every single week. And so early on, some pastors like to take off on Monday early in the week. I like to get after my week. It's kind of a type A personality. I like to get started. I don't want to get behind. And so Friday is my day where I say, all right, I'm unplugged. I'm not going to do this. Now, I'm not legalistic about it. You can interrupt me at any time. I feel like I've been talking for a while here. I'm not legalistic about it. If there's an event or something important, I will make time for it. But then I try to balance it out somewhere else in my week to say, like, this is not all based on me. God is carrying this ministry. God is the one that sustains me. If I don't take a break, I'm not acting like that's true.
Do you work towards, like, is your Monday through Thursday, obviously you're gearing towards that Sabbath. So what does that look like for you? Like, is it, because I think a lot of ways when you are choosing to rest, you have to make it happen, which sounds like counterproductive, where you're like, well, if I want to rest, I want to do nothing.
Right.
But to get to that place of rest, you have to work towards it.
Do you?
But do you? I don't know.
I don't think you do. No, nothing is. So here's another lie and myth. The tyranny of the urgent. Nothing is as urgent as we think it is. You can even file for like an extension on your taxes.
Yeah.
Right? April 15th, kind of. It's not really. Just, is it really?
Yeah.
Happy birthday. My son is April 14th.
Wow. We planned that.
Amazing, right? Yeah. So like taxes, they're due, and it's like nothing is certain, like death and taxes.
Yeah.
Well, taxes, you can extend them, right?
Like,
and like during COVID, I think it was like a year. It was like file them a whole year later. I think the devil magnifies things, and we feel like, well, in order to have a Sabbath, I have to get all this stuff done. It'll be there on Monday.
100%.
It'll be there on Monday.
Oh, it's not good for me.
It will.
That's good though. Yeah.
What the Lord has done though is help me prioritize things.
Yeah.
What is most urgent and what is not as urgent as I think it is. Mm-hmm. It's a grind. It'll be there on Monday. I could work on a sermon for 50 hours and I could work on a sermon for 20 hours. And I don't think that extra 30 hours difference, I don't think anyone sees it. Mm. That's my insecurity. That's my fear. Now I need to get it to a spot where I feel like, okay, Lord, this is where you wanted. That's a relationship. It's walking with the Spirit. But that extra 30 hours, that's insecurity on me. That's not polishing it and making it a diamond. And now in it, like at 20 or 30 hours, it's a, what is it, coal? Was a diamond come?
Yeah.
Pressurized coal?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
It's not as urgent as we think it is.
Yeah.
So some of us, we don't take a Sabbath because we think like, well, I can't get everything done before this day. It'll be there next week.
Yeah.
It really will. Now, if there's something absolutely urgent, take care of it.
Yeah.
But let God help you decipher what is really urgent and what do I just fear is too important not to do right now.
Yeah. Maybe could you speak to about, I'm thinking of like parents who are like, you don't understand, like my kid has travel sports on these days, like things that are easy to think are non-negotiables, but they're not. How do you instill a Sabbath with your family, like with kids? And I mean, that's something I'm not in right now, but I'm thinking about like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so
Sabbath is demanding.
Sometimes we just think so it's only just one day. And Dave talked a lot about New Covenant. For the D'Angelos, Sunday afternoon is family meal time.
I love that.
I grew up where we always had sauce on Sundays, pasta sauce.
Italian.
Yeah, it's so Italian, right? we still do that. And so we still celebrate. And if sometimes life is busy and there's a grind and I got to stay at church till 1:30 or 2 o'clock, we might not do sauce on Sunday, but we have a meal and we gather together. It's a pause in our week. So families, I would encourage you, find, choose, and guard a mealtime. 30 minutes. Sit down at a table. The table is sacred. We're going to be teaching on the meals Jesus had. And I'm so excited about this. At the turn of like the new year, in January and February and March, we're going to be looking at what Jesus did at all these meals. Luke, the Gospel of Luke, Jesus is either going to, sitting at, or coming from a meal. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
The table is sacred. So families, we can guard that. Find a time, 30 minutes. I think that's how you do that as a family. And my son played travel soccer. Yeah. So we did do the tournaments. We did go away, but understanding there's grace. And if we couldn't get to it this weekend, let's just make sure we do it next weekend. So stay away from legalism, because the Sabbath is meant to be as unto the Lord, not as, well, God, did you see how righteous I am? I kept it. Are we good?
Yeah.
It's not that. It's a gift to us.
Such a good distinction. Something I fall into. I can be so like, well, this is what it says and this is how it should be.
Regimented.
Yeah. I need a list of what it is and that's what I'll do.
Yeah.
What for you, could you define a little bit of work? I feel like that's something Dave touched on is like, you're resting from work and beyond just your 9 to 5.
Yeah.
What are some things we can practically be like, wait, nope, need to set that aside. This is the day I'm remembering. Yeah.
So I don't pick my sermon up on Fridays. I have built into my life a rhythm of by 1 o'clock on Thursdays, the sermon is done. It's printed. It's in my notebook. And so I don't pick it up and study it on Fridays. That's work. I could do that at home. I could do it quietly. I could slip away for an hour, but I don't do it because it takes me away from more than an hour. Work is emails. Work is taking those phone calls and not having boundaries by saying, hey, I'm available, just call me. Sometimes it's like, hey, no, I'm going to be off on Friday. We can talk about that on Monday.
Yeah.
Emails is the big one. I also have put into my life. So once I stepped into the role that I'm in now, 7:30 at night is my cutoff time. I don't check an email after 7:30 p.m.
That's good.
Because I can't do anything about it after 7:30.
So true.
Right? And it's just going to help me not sleep, be anxious, grow frustrated, and fill in the gaps with my interpretation of what could have happened or really happened or what I need to do. So I wait till the morning because then if I need to call our team or call a person or respond, I can do it while I'm fresh. Sleep is a big part of rejuvenation. So work, the opposite of work too, is what rejuvenates you. What is fun? Some people love to work in their yard. Do that on your Sabbath. That's not work. It's like this rest, and like when you see the beauty of creation, what God has given you, when you commune with the Father, that's rejuvenating. Yeah. That to me is what Sabbath is about. It's restfulness. It's a break from work. It's what rejuvenates you. I used to run at North Park on Fridays, and I loved it because I was out in nature. I was with a friend. I was sometimes listening to worship music and sometimes not worship music, like just music, but it was a break from work.
Yeah.
So
something you said too that I loved was about the importance of your presence with your family, with people you love, and how when you are intentional with that Sabbath, that becomes so much more of a priority. And like that 7:30 email cutoff, that I'm sure is allowing you to be present. Even if you weren't aware of it mentally, you're somewhere else. Like,
that's right.
The people closest to you notice.
That's right. My daughter and I watch The Voice.
Oh,
wife too.
What a great show.
Right? Great show. Right? Who would you choose if you were to choose a
I don't even know who the judges are anymore. I'm so out. Like, I watched it back in the...
Reba's on it. Reba is on it. Come on. You got to love Miss Reba, the queen, right?
That changed everything.
Gwen, and so I'm a John Legend guy. I think he's so smooth. He's from Ohio. He's like kind of nearby here.
Yeah.
John and I would be friends.
Yeah.
So in the evenings when we watch The Voice, I want to be with my daughter. I don't want to miss that because I will never remember the emails I was so stressed about 3 months ago. I won't.
Yeah.
I will always remember time with my daughter watching The Voice, sitting there with Brooke and her and me and our dog. And it's just, it's a wonderful time. And here's the thing for parents, more is caught than taught. So you can talk about the importance of family dinners. You can talk about the importance of a Sabbath. You can talk about like sitting there together. But if you were just on email and you're working, you're really not there, they pick up on that. They do. More is caught than taught. And so Sabbath helps us present rhythms to our kids that they will pick up on and believe are normal, so they can live counterculturally and not fear that they're missing out or they're messing up. God built this in. He knows so much more than we do. And there's so much beauty in taking time to rest and be present. It helps us understand that it's not all on us. It's all on Him.
That's such a good reminder for so many reasons. As we get ready to wrap up, somehow the time's flown. We love this. We love doing this.
And I didn't even preach this sermon, so
I know.
I get fired up.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So I was supposed to preach, but Dave Buehring, when he comes in, I give him one of my weekends just so that he can take it. But I will say, like, I was excited to preach about Sabbath. I love it. I think it's so vital. It's like a hidden blessing from God. If you just trust Him, if you just try it, you will see a difference in your life, just like tithing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what a great thing to take into this week. Like, all right, what are we going to do differently this week to really embrace and experience that Sabbath?
That's right.
It's always there, but it's easy to be like, oh.
Yep. Trust Him.
Yeah.
Trust Him with it. Yeah.
Could you answer before we wrap up as we leave, our question we always like to leave with, in relation to the Sabbath, how do you know, experience, and follow Jesus more because of it?
Yeah. Knowing, experiencing, and following Jesus is always connected to faith. It's always connected into trusting His ways more so than our ways. The moment you try to Sabbath, you will be tempted to fear, I'm not doing this other thing. Trust Him. Let Him handle it. You want to know why we don't know the peace of God? It's because we don't practice the ways of God. God will, like that moment when the storm is coming, Jesus is in the boat with the disciples. You will see Jesus present in your life when you practice Sabbath, because you will have peace, understanding that you don't have to do it all. God's got you, and God's got it.
It's a good word. I will definitely be playing this back for myself. Just
Let's go.
Reminder.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in as always. We'll be back next week and the week after that. So have a great week.
See you next week, everybody.
See ya.